Marble Zone is overhated and underrated. A common sentiment about Sonic 1 that I've heard is that Green Hill Zone is great, but Marble Zone sucks. This is a view I've seen expressed on X, on Reddit, and by a few of my favourite Let's Play and video game YouTubers.
I could do this big analytical take on why this level blows, but I don't have to. It's just bad.
I could never get past this level as a kid.
Exactly!
Yeah.
It sucks!
Respectfully though, I honestly never felt like this myself, and I think it's time to defend Marble Zone's honour. This is Mobius Geographic. Marble Zone was not originally planned to be the game's second zone. That honour originally went to Labyrinth Zone, which was deemed by Yuji Naka and co. to be too much of a difficulty increase, and so later on in development, the level order was changed. Interestingly, when you visit the game's level select screen, Marble isn't listed second, which is a leftover from the game's original zone order. Still, I can't deny that, although it's not Labyrinth Zone level, Marble is by definition slower and more difficult than Green Hill. But that's part of the point, at least the difficulty part is anyway. After beautiful landscapes and open level design, Sonic is thrown into a rather stiff, claustrophobic and very dangerous environment. It's time to get serious. We ain't in Weenie Hut Jr. anymore.
Listen, kid, I think you'd be more comfortable over at that place.
Weenie Hut Juniors!
Marble Zone creates a lot of little devilish scenarios designed to catch out unsuspecting players. But a large part of Marble's challenge is pure platforming, i.e. jumping from platform to platform at just the right time. Act 3, for example, contains a particularly diabolical section that demands some very precise jumps and a bit of patience to traverse, with the risk of dropping players back to an earlier part of the zone if they stumble. By modern Sonic standards, this sort of stuff is like some From Software level shit. But compared to the NES library, for example, this is fairly tame. I think it's a fairly rare thing, actually, for Sonic Zones to actively punish players, but that's what Marble Zone does. Every part of the level is designed to catch out players. Even early on, it's like, yeah, let's jump over these little lava pools, what could go wrong? Oh wait, there's fireballs jumping out of the lava to tag me. Or this pokey little corridor, let's charge through it. Oh no, a spring to shoot me backwards to my doom in the lava. It's tough, folks. But is it too slow? Like many other zones in Sonic 1, Marble does have an unfortunate amount of dead time, I'll call it. Take these blocks for example, they're the main offenders. You ride them to traverse lava pools, but while you're on them, you're just waiting. Standing still. Desperate, with nothing but a few very tame obstacles to jump over to keep you entertained. Isn't waiting and standing still the anathema, the antithesis of Sonic? The exact opposite of what you want to be doing? Maybe the critics were right. Maybe that combination of Marble Zone's toughness and its slowness means it really does suck. Here's the thing though, Marble Zone doesn't have to be slow and it doesn't have to be difficult. Maybe it's just a skill issue. After a playthrough or two, you'll start to realise that there is a faster way to traverse almost every segment, if you're feeling bold enough. Why wait around on this slow-moving block when you can do this? Alright! Why wait for slow, swinging platforms when you can just do this?
Yeah, boy.
That's the ingenious thing I love about this zone. It's just as elegantly designed as Green Hill Zone with just as much room for skill expression, once you get a little bit used to the zone's layout. There are a few obvious moments where I think the level designers were nudging you to try a couple of these tricks. This block is a particular example because there's a TV monitor over to the right. I think this is placed here obviously to give you a bit of defense, but also to say, okay, you're up here now, what if you jump on the block and just keep running? That was always my interpretation. And although I didn't try this method on my first playthrough, It just clicked after one or two goes. But I guess this is really the crux of Marble Zone's issue. It becomes very rewarding on revisits, but I can't really envision first-time players being able to perform like this, and it's a little bit demanding to suggest that every casual player has to morph into a pseudo speedrunning master in order just to enjoy the zone. I'd consider that a fair critique, but to be honest, even though I love blasting through Marble Zone, I don't even really mind the idea of a Sonic game containing a slower paced zone anyway. I like platforming games. I love games like Super Mario Land, Mega Man 2, Rayman, Crash Bandicoot, or Shovel Knight for a slightly more modern example. Stuff like those games, where really large portions of the game simply revolve around landing demanding jumps, and waiting to pull those jumps off. That essentially is Marble Zone, right? It's a platforming level in a platforming game. If you put Sonic speed aside and judge it from this viewpoint, it's a pretty decent little level with some admirably tricky and devilish little level design moments. I think, ultimately, Marble Zone's reputation really started to get worse with the release of Sonic 2. When it became obvious that Sonic games were only going to get faster, Marble Zone started feeling really sluggish, and Sega have never really given us a zone like it since. Like literally, virtually every Sonic game since the turn of the millennium has been full throttle, and pure unfiltered platforming has given way to a crazy sense of speed and very open level design. That's fine, that's Sonic's USP, but I'm one of those people. I actually kinda like what Marble Zone brings to the table. One final note on this topic. I trolled through a bunch of video game magazines to see what contemporary opinions of Marble Zone were, and there's really not that much criticism of the specific zone to be found. At least to reviewers in the 1990s, it wasn't viewed as a blemish on the game. Let's chill out a bit and talk about some of the lighter aspects of Marble Zone. What I do here on Mobius Geographic, for those that are new, is talk about everything of note. A zone's level design, its reputation, its badniks, and its visual design. So let's discuss the latter. I guess before we do that though, we have to ask ourselves a key question. What is Marble Zone? A lot of Sonic zones are self-explanatory, but Marble Zone has always struck me as a bit of a mystery. The upper part of the level seems to depict a long-forgotten ancient city that's crumbling and being engulfed by forest. The depths of the zone are full of hazards, almost like traps to deter intruders. There's some interesting background details to note. There are these barred cells that look empty, suggesting it's a place that's long since been abandoned, but also these lanterns burning brightly, suggesting that maybe someone or something still lives there. It begs the question, is Marble Zone an abandoned temple complex? A jail? A dungeon? Some sort of torture chamber? Or a subterranean abode that's still in use? In various different bits of official literature, it's been described as a temple and an underground palace. So I guess we do have an answer, but I guess ultimately the original origin and purpose of the zone is left up to one's imagination. Whatever the case, Marble Zone, being largely subterranean and quite claustrophobic, definitely exudes a kind of sinister darkness about it. I can't help but feel that Marble Zone is inspired by ancient Greece. The ancient Greeks were renowned for their use of marble in sculpture and construction, and one small motif found on some of Marble Zone's crumbling temples resembles two lions surrounding a fountain, with lions being a not uncommon feature of Greek art and culture. Greece was on the mind of Sega in the late 80s and early 90s, it seems. Sega released Columns in 1989 which boasted a Greek aesthetic, so too did 1989's Altered Beast. I've always felt like the opening graveyard level in Altered Beast shares more than a passing resemblance to Marble Zone. Was this a possible inspiration for the zone at all? I'd like to think so. They both share a similar colour palette too. Oh, and to clear things up, no, this is not Super Mario's face.
Oh, mamma mia!
In what is a nice continuity nod, Marble Zone does share one or two things in common with Green Hill, like the perfectly mowed grass and these swinging platforms, which can be found in both. Obviously though, Marble Zone is much drearier than Green Hill, mainly consisting of a fairly dull purple colour. The pastel colour choices do, however, really help to highlight the lava in the zone, which is vibrantly yellow and red. I don't know about you, but I always thought the lava looked kinda delicious, like pizza or cheese on toast. Man, it looks great. One final visual note, Marble Zone actually appeared in the hilarious 1992 comedy movie Wayne's World, albeit briefly. More accurately, some beta footage of the zone appeared in the movie, showing some UFO-like objects floating around in the air. I'm glad that these were removed from the final version of the zone because they really detract from the isolated feel that Marble Zone creates, and they look way too flashy and distracting, clashing with the more muted presentation of the rest of the zone. Next up is music. You might have seen some videos getting popular on YouTube pointing out how some Sonic songs sound like songs by well-known musical artists. Well, here's a doozy. Marble Zone's main melody literally sounds like a knockoff of Music to Watch Girls by Bob Crew from 1966. A very jazzy little lounge ditty with a bit of a bossa nova vibe. I'm not fraud-checking composer Masato Nakamura by drawing a comparison. I think it's undeniable that he weaved popular music he'd heard into Sonic's soundtrack. But although the melody is identical, the overall vibe and atmosphere of the two pieces is very different, with Marble Zone successfully creating quite a sparse and lonely feel, somehow underpinned by a slight romantic nostalgia for whatever Marble Zone was in the past. The synth organs and prominent bass in the Marble Zone tune accentuate Marble's mysterious aura. Unfortunately, because of the nature of YouTube, I can't share Bob Crew's tune with you, but check it out. Or check out the vocal cover of Andy Williams from 1967. Sonic Mania composer Tee Lopes actually posted a nice cover of Marble Zone's music a long time ago, which he describes as tango with a techno twist, jazz chords and progressions, and a Latin percussion set behind it. It really highlights how jazzy and Latin flavoured the music actually is, though, like I said, credit to Nakamura for making such a toe-tapping melody sound a tiny bit grim as well. Okay, let's run through the Badniks, the boss, and the zone's legacy to finish things off. Marble Zone is home to 3 different Badniks. Buzz Bomber makes a return, but we're also introduced to Batbrain and Caterkiller. Batbrain is a thematically brilliant Badnik. Like a real bat, it hangs upside down in the depths of Marble Zone until disturbed, and definitely adds to the ambiance. I always thought that having environmentally appropriate Badniks actually helped to give Robotnik a bit of flair and personality, showing that he did have an element of care and of style when designing and distributing his Badniks. There is some method behind Robotnik's madness. Caterkiller, I think, is my favourite Sonic 1 Badnik. The spikes and sharp teeth of the Caterkillers were quite menacing to a young Johnny Vector. Mechanically, they're a tricky Badnik to deal with in close quarters. Lazily try to smash through them, and you're likely to be punished by landing on their spikes and causing them to explode into pieces and potentially cause additional ricochet damage. It's a very inventive Badnik. And as for Robotnik, I always felt like Marble Zone's boss was, in a word, uninspired, with it being almost impossible to fail. Get 1 or 2 hits in, and jump over to the next platform, waiting for Robotnik to finish his spiel and come over for another 1 or 2 hits. Hardly a series standout, but not a boss that does the zone's reputation any favours either.
Oh, brother, this guy stinks!
Finally, let's talk about legacy. Marble Zone, like all of Sonic 1's zones, has largely been overshadowed by Green Hill. I think the zone offers fertile ground for a revisit, but it's never truly happened. Marble Zone has reappeared in a few side games, most notably in the LEGO Dimensions Sonic game. The Sonic level pack was interesting because a lot of older zones made a reappearance, but all of them had newly composed music, which was almost always a downgrade from the original music. And Marble Zone is no exception. One thing I can say though is that visually, LEGO Dimensions Marble Zone looks great, and the slightly sinister atmosphere has been amplified by the new furnaces in the background that look a little bit like, well, Ganon. This place looks downright evil. Also, small note, our old pal Tails doll can be found here too. Beyond this, there's not much more to say. I'd love to see Marble Zone reappear in some way, shape or form. Even if you don't enjoy the challenge and the platforming of the zone, you gotta admit the music slaps and the graphics are great too. I can only imagine what this place would look like if reimagined as a Sonic Generations-esque zone, or a Sonic Mania-esque zone. A man can dream. I guess Marble Zone's legacy seems to be mostly negative, as alluded to earlier, with it being cited alongside Labyrinth as a reason why Sonic 1 is less fun than later games. I don't think that perception will ever realistically change, but that's okay. Thanks for joining. I've tried to explore Marble Zone inside and out, but if there's anything else you'd like to share, please do let everyone know in the comments. Of course, next time, we'll be taking a trip to Spring Yard Zone, so be sure to like the video and subscribe for that one soon. Up, over, and gone.